In the last episode, we explored one of the most disturbing commands in the Bible, a moment when war, judgment, and obedience collided in a terrifying way. A command that forced readers to ask a chilling question: why would God command the destruction of an entire people, men, women, children? It was a story that unsettled many, but that brutal moment in Israel's history was not the last, because the Bible records another event, one so disturbing that many readers wish it wasn't there at all. A moment when hunger became so powerful that it shattered the deepest instinct of humanity, the instinct of a mother to protect her child. Tonight we step into one of the darkest scenes in the Old Testament, a chapter that describes something almost unimaginable: cannibalism. During a time of war, a moment recorded in 2 Kings chapter 6, verses 28 into 9. A story so shocking that for centuries people have asked the same question: how could things ever become this desperate? But before we descend into this disturbing moment in history, take a moment to subscribe to the channel Biblical Mysteries and Stories, because here, we explore the darkest passages in the Bible, stories many people skip, stories that raise difficult questions, stories that reveal the uncomfortable reality of human history and human nature. If you're ready to confront the deeper and darker mysteries of Scripture, then stay with us, because this story begins not with hunger, but with war. Ancient Israel was constantly surrounded by enemies, powerful kingdoms, aggressive armies, nations that fought endlessly for land, power, and survival. One of Israel's most dangerous enemies was a powerful kingdom to the north, Aram, also known as Syria. Its king was relentless, determined to weaken Israel and crush its defenses. Again and again, the Aramean army launched attacks, and eventually, they surrounded one of Israel's most important cities, Samaria. But this time, they didn't attack immediately. They did something far more devastating. They laid siege. A siege is a slow form of warfare. Instead of storming the walls, the enemy surrounds the city, cutting off every supply route. No food can enter. No water can be delivered. No one can escape. And slowly, the city begins to starve. At first, people ration what they have. They eat smaller meals. They stretch their supplies. But as days turn into weeks, and weeks turn into months, something terrifying begins to happen. Food disappears, the market's empty, animals are slaughtered, grain runs out, and hunger begins to twist the minds of the people inside the walls. The Bible gives a chilling glimpse into just how severe the famine became. In the marketplace, the price of food reached unimaginable levels. Donkey heads, once considered worthless, were sold for enormous amounts of money. Even dove's dung, something no one would normally eat, became a desperate source of survival. The city was collapsing from within. Hunger does something terrifying to the human mind. It weakens judgment, destroys morality, pushes people beyond limits they once believed impossible. And it was in this atmosphere of desperation that one of the darkest moments in the Bible occurred. The king of Israel was walking along the city wall, looking down at the starving people below, listening to their cries for help. And suddenly, a woman shouted up to him, "Help me, my lord the king." The king turned toward her, but even he was powerless. The city had no food, no supplies, no way out. Still, he asked her what was wrong, and what she said next froze the moment in horror. She said, "This woman said to me, 'Give up your son so we may eat him today, and tomorrow we'll eat my son.'" Imagine hearing those words, a conversation between two mothers, not about protecting their children, but about eating them. The woman continued, "So we cooked my son, and ate him. Then the next day came, and when it was time for the other mother to fulfill her promise, she hid her child." The king tore his clothes in grief and horror as he walked along the wall. The people saw something shocking. Underneath his royal robes, he was wearing sackcloth, the clothing of mourning, the clothing of despair. Even the king had lost hope. The city had descended into a nightmare, cannibalism, not as an act of evil cruelty, but as the final, horrifying stage of starvation. And for many readers today, this story raises a disturbing question: how could things ever become this desperate? The answer lies in something humanity has witnessed again and again throughout history. Sieges break cities. When people are trapped, when food disappears, when survival becomes uncertain, civilization itself begins to collapse. History records many similar tragedies during ancient wars, medieval sieges, even modern conflicts. Starving populations have sometimes reached unimaginable extremes. When survival instincts take over, morality can crumble, and the Bible does not hide this reality. It records it honestly, painfully, without trying to soften the horror. But there is another layer to this story, because the famine in Samaria was not just a military tragedy, according to the biblical narrative, it was also connected to something deeper: spiritual corruption. For generations, Israel had turned away from God. Kings led the people into idolatry. Prophets were ignored. Warnings were dismissed. And slowly, the nation drifted further from the moral path it once followed. Many biblical writers believed that national corruption eventually leads to national collapse, that injustice, violence, and moral decay slowly weaken a society from within, until finally, disaster arrives, whether through invasion, economic collapse, or internal chaos. The siege of Samaria became a terrifying symbol of that collapse. Not just physical hunger, but spiritual emptiness. And this idea may feel uncomfortable today, because modern societies often believe they are immune to such collapse. We believe technology protects us. We believe progress guarantees stability. But history tells a different story. Great civilizations have fallen before. Empires that once seemed unstoppable eventually crumbled, and often the warning signs appeared long before the fall: corruption, moral confusion, leaders chasing power instead of truth, societies divided against themselves. The ancient story of Samaria reminds us of something unsettling. Human nature has not changed as much as we think. Even today, around the world, cities experience war, families experience hunger, communities face desperation, and when survival is threatened, the darker sides of humanity can emerge. The Bible forces us to confront this uncomfortable reality. It shows us the best of humanity, but also the worst. Moments of faith, and moments of unimaginable despair. And yet, even in this story of horror, the Bible introduces another figure, a prophet, a man who stood apart from the corruption and chaos of the time. His name was Elisha. While the king blamed him for the disaster, Elisha delivered a message that seemed almost impossible. He said that the famine would end, that within a single day, food would once again fill the markets of Samaria, to the starving people inside the city. This prophecy must have sounded absurd, impossible. How could a city surrounded by enemies suddenly find food? But what happened next was completely unexpected. During the night, something strange occurred in the enemy camp. The Aramean army suddenly heard terrifying sounds. The noise of approaching horses, the thunder of chariots, the roar of a massive army. Convinced that Israel had hired powerful allies to attack them, the soldiers panicked, and in the darkness of the night, they fled, leaving behind everything: their tents, their weapons, and most importantly, their food. The siege was over, but inside the city, the people didn't know it yet, until a group of desperate men discovered the abandoned camp. Food everywhere, supplies everywhere. The famine had ended, almost overnight. It was a shocking reversal, a moment that seemed impossible just hours earlier. But the horrifying memory of what had happened inside the city could never be erased. The story of the two mothers remained as a dark reminder of how low humanity can fall when hope disappears. And perhaps that is why this story was preserved in Scripture, not to glorify suffering, but to warn future generations, to remind us that societies are fragile, that moral decay can lead to disaster, and that desperation can push people beyond limits they once believed unthinkable. The story forces us to ask difficult questions. What would we do in such circumstances? How strong is our morality? When survival is on the line, would modern societies behave differently? Or would we discover that the same darkness still exists within us? The Bible often acts like a mirror, reflecting humanity at its best and at its worst, and this story may be one of the darkest reflections in the entire Old Testament. If you find these hidden and disturbing biblical stories fascinating, subscribe to the channel Biblical Mysteries and Stories, because here we explore the passages that most people overlook, the strange, the controversial, the mysterious, stories that challenge what we think we know about the Bible, stories that reveal the deeper layers of history, faith, and human nature. And if this story shocked you, the next chapter in this series goes even further, because one of the prophets of Israel delivered a message so graphic, so explicit, that many modern readers are stunned when they first encounter it. A chapter filled with shocking imagery, language that is raw, symbolic, and brutally honest about spiritual corruption. It is found in Ezekiel chapter 16, a prophecy describing the spiritual unfaithfulness of an entire nation, using imagery so intense that some readers call it the most graphic chapter in the prophets, and Ezekiel didn't stop there. In the next video, we will explore the disturbing symbolism behind this prophecy, why the prophet used such shocking language, what it meant for ancient Israel, and why its message still challenges readers today. So stay here on Biblical Mysteries and Stories. Click on the next video. and continue this journey into the darkest and most mysterious chapters of the Bible.